So here's our two most popular simulators, which would be the Class A, Class B vehicle. You simply have to hover over the vehicle, go ahead and click in, and then this is the main dashboard that you see here. So there's a couple things I'd like to get into. First off, anything that you see in the Class A vehicle, you can just jump to the Class B vehicle at any point during your training process. We can switch back. We can change the drop down here to Spanish. So any markets that deal with Spanish speaking communities, we have seen that even though they have to eventually test in English, when they're able to see the parts and get the descriptions in their native language, they start to understand what it is that they're learning and why. From there we have our test mode, which I'll go through in the end. And here on the right, we do have our virtual video instructor. So this is Michael Zamo, and he basically walks the student through what it is that they need to learn for their pre-trip inspection. We're also compatible for disabled. Obviously, the subtitles are there. So the student is never left alone. They always have a virtual video instructor that can walk them through. So here we have over 37 different screens, and when you click on a screen, you'll see that initially everything highlights in white. And as it does, it will give you the actual description that you'd like your students to memorize. So for example, we talk about the fog lights and the headlamps. To navigate, you simply use the back arrow or the right and left arrow. Let's zoom into the top of the vehicle here. And we have everything. Again, this was created by instructors for instructors, so we don't leave anything that shouldn't be there. We haven't missed anything that should be there. So even from the insurance sticker to the safety sticker, it's all here. We took the schematics of a Peterbilt and International, and we try to create the best of both worlds. I want to show how quick it is to literally jump straight into the slack adjuster screen. At a click of a button, you can take off the tire, examine the push rod, and all of the details and mechanical parts that they need to memorize. But at the same time, they could also view a video of how the actual slack adjuster check is performed with our video instructor. So there's no excuse, and the student can always feel like there's someone with them at all times. So not only are they memorizing, but they're actually training as well on why they're learning this information. From here, we'd like to back out. Let's jump straight into the front suspension, which if you click on the red arrow, the red hotspots, it will zoom into another portion of our simulation system. Another key factor here is you can jump around the screens with the arrows. For example, let's examine the battery box. Or we could jump into the steering compartment by these hyperlinks on the bottom of the software. So let's go straight into the engine compartment, where it'll tell them everything that they need to know, and then they can actually zoom into the steering wheel system, which again, everything highlighted in white initially will give them a part description. We click another red hotspot and we get a different view of the steering system. And again, this is completely customizable, so if there's something that you need to say it in a different way, there'll always be an opportunity for us to customize it for you. And down to the spindle, even if you take a student out to the physical truck, it's very hard to show them where exactly the spindle is. The front suspension here, and it talks about air bellows. It gives you every single part in detail that they need to, from the rubber, from the eye bolt down to the frame. So we'll back out of this view here. Move to the right. Now here we can zoom into the service and electrical lines and then give them obviously the description. And again, wherever you see a view video, you will have Mike actually walking them through what they need to know as far as their hoses and air lines. So here we back out. We can move into the fifth wheel portion. All the descriptions would be simply hovered over. Or we do have a version where it walks them through each part step by step. So if you don't want to have them to have the freedom to go wherever they like in the software, we can set it up for you to control where they're at. So then let's move over to the back of the vehicle, where we'll go ahead and move into the rear suspension. can zoom into the back of the vehicle where from the splash guards to the signal and the ABS or brake lights, the DOT reflective tape. We also have the door ties here and everything that they're going to need to memorize and know on the vehicle for the pre-trip inspection. If we move here, we'll talk about the tires and the 10 points that they should know. We have schematics of a muffler. We also have vertical stack for the newer vehicles. Here we also have, for example, the front tire where they can zoom in. It'll talk about the hub oil seal, the rim, the lug nuts, and again, the tires. You can navigate to the front again. But let's jump into where the rubber meets the road. Let's go into the air brake system. This is really a very handy tool for a lot of our clients. As you can see here, the PSI pressure is building up to 120 PSI as it flows through the air dryer tanks and then is being evenly distributed through all of the braking system. And then it'll actually show an animation of what happens when you press the service brake. It'll show down to the brake drum after this animation, not only how it functions, but also all the parts that they'll need to have memorized. The arrows on the bottom will give them the ability to reenact the animation they just saw. So for example, what they just saw will repeat. Then once it's done highlighting all the parts in white, it'll give them the ability to hover over for the description. And it also shows the trailer as well. And this is huge because I can't tell you how much enough, drivers, when they get out there, they get bad habits. It's very important for them to understand why they need to be doing their pre-trip and checking their air brakes. Safety is always our #1 priority. But we can go ahead and let's go to the exterior here. And I would like to jump into the interior where we can navigate through by the right arrows here. Open the door and go ahead and have to jump right in. We have 2 different views here. And this is really good. This is where we consolidate and we collapse the time it takes to train. For example, if you have 10 students in a classroom, you might have 7 A students and the rest might be B, C, D, and F students. Well, with our software, they'll be able to not only test, but your instructor will be able to identify exactly where they're struggling based on their wrong answers. And I'll go more further into detail with that when we go through the test module. Here, if we go ahead and move into the dash view, as you can tell, we talk about the city horns. We actually move into all of the speedometers, the tachometer, everything that they need to have and know here. If we back out, we also have the in-depth view of all the rocker switches, all the braking system, and the rocker switches as you see here. We also obviously talk about the pedals and the floors, fuses or the circuit breakers, their shift lever. When they back out, we can actually perform the air brake test. And this is really an interactive module here because the student can watch how the test is being performed. So right here, the engine is being turned on. Obviously, the air pressure builds up automatically. They'll shift into first to low gear, turn the engine off. And this is a really handy tool because if you're out, in a yard with a class of students, you might have students that are being distracted by their cell phones or by their environment, or simply statistics show that students only retain about 10% of the information shared with them on a first-time basis. So what this does is it helps you in the classroom, whether it's snowing or raining outside, it helps you go through all of the air lake tests from the applied down to the service brake, and it helps them understand everything. Once they've actually watched the video and they feel confident that they know how to perform the test, you can go ahead and test them with our practice module, which here's our practice mode. Basically, they're in control. At the click of a button, they can start performing the test. So the first step would be to turn the engine on by clicking on the key. They'll wait for their air pressure to build up. Once this is complete, now the system is basically asking them, what do you want me to do next? So everything is flashing white. They're going to go ahead and secure in first or low gear. Then they will go ahead and have the option to either push or pull. We're going to go ahead and push the tractor parking brake and then release the trailer emergency brake. And as you can see here, that was the service brake, but we can also do the exact same thing for the static or any of the air leak tests. So I'll show a quick demonstration of another one. During all of these screens where you see the view video, they'll have Mike, our live instructor, that'll help them walk through. So here it's asking me, what do you want to do? We're going to turn on the engine. Wait for the PSI pressure to build up. So I would encourage you just to analyze how much you spend on your instructors. Go through the redundant process of taking each student one by one through this. Here you can have this connected to, I've seen it in projectors or individual computers, or again, if you're not set up for that type of environment, they can access this from any mobile device, iPad, or any computer at home. So now that we've seen the interior and how we help you save money on pre-trip testing and pre-trip instruction, I'd like to also jump to our test module, which we hired a PhD to help us make the product better. And what came back with is students that retain information better when they know they're going to be tested on it. So here's the test mode where they'll be able to start the test. So here we would go ahead and click, for example, on the windshield, and your student would go ahead and type in their answer. So whatever it is that you would want them to answer. For example purposes, I'm just typing in jargon. Obviously, I don't want to bore anyone, but so let's say the 3 ID lights. And they would type in their description. And again, this is just for example purposes. So once they finish this area of the test, they would actually move to the next area of the test, just like in the software. And again, they'll just be answering all the highlighted white parts. And then what I'd like to show you is, obviously we would go through the whole test in this module. So as you can see here in all the screens, they're going to have to know the information. And once they do, we would go ahead and finalize their test. I'm just briefly going through every screen. And here it would give you a side-by-side comparison of what they're answering. So if they're missing any part, you'll be able to guide them to go back and catch the part. And then once they actually finish the test, you'd have a printout ability of exactly what the software has in it, and then side by side with what the student answered. So you can really focus on those D and F students, also giving them that one-on-one attention that they might need, because as you know, every student has different learning capacities. So at the end, you can go ahead and print and finish the test and keep that for your records so you can track progress. This is our testing module. So this concludes what we have. Again, just from job placement to permit questions to the 2 simulators for Class A, Class B vehicle, we have everything that you guys need to be more effective in your training process. And we look forward to earning your business. Please feel free to visit us at pretripmaster.com. Please like our channel on YouTube and feel free to subscribe. We ask that you please share, and thank you for your time.